Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. I am Jackie Tomes, and on this show we're having open conversations about building a property business that creates not just cash flow but also freedom. And on today's episode we are joined by Dom and Dave, and we're talking about prioritization and how to actually deprioritize, going from juggling too many balls and actually deciding which balls you're actually okay to drop to get out of that overwhelm. We've all been there, being overwhelmed, being spread too thin, and actually it's not just a practical thing, but it's also how you shift your mindset to make this happen as well. Really amazing conversation today with Dom and Dave. You're going to love this. So without further ado, let's do this. The art of deprioritization.
Hello, Dom.
Hello, Dave. Great to be here. Another episode, and this one on the topic of overwhelm, which relates to one that people might have heard a few weeks back around burnout. But overwhelm is kind of the starting point of burnout. So, where would you start with this one?
Well, I was going to say the reason we brought this up, right, is because actually June is a very busy month of the year because you've churned through the first, stuff you've wanted to get done, and you really started to build momentum in the business, and stuff is usually paying off by now in some way or another. And then you're also trying to get stuff done before the summer holidays.
Right.
So you're trying to get tied up by the end of July.
Yeah.
So, and we've actually seen this in action with our clients this month. That's what sparked us choosing to do this. Now, I think we're obviously going to be releasing this episode later, maybe July or August, but we're recording it in June, and this is the month that our clients have suddenly been coming to us saying, "Oh, all this stuff has gone so well. I've just agreed this deal. I've got all these refurbs on. I've raised all this money. I need to find the next deal for it." Yes. And it's all happening, and they're starting to say this word, overwhelm. They don't say, "I'm worried I'm going to get overwhelmed," or "I'm starting to get overwhelmed." And it's a common theme across our clients this month. And I've, reflecting on it, thought, well, yeah, it is the time of year you would. And funnily enough, Jackie and I in June are on the brink of potentially getting overwhelmed and having to manage that. And how do we manage it? And it's just so relevant to any business owner, anyone trying to do this industry, or any industry actually, running your own business as an entrepreneur. There will be moments where the business tries to overwhelm you. And the question is, how do you stop it from moving from the overwhelm phase into the burnout phase? How do we avoid the burnout by managing ourselves and managing the overwhelm properly? Because if you don't manage it, you will end up burnt out. And that is the worst scenario, right? We don't want to get there.
Exactly.
So
go on. I was going to say the thing about overwhelm is spotting yourself before it gets too bad, or even being aware enough to avoid it completely. And that's something is a skill set that we need to develop to make sure that we don't get too overwhelmed, but also knowing that even to the best of us, even the most well practiced and methodical and people with the best routines, overwhelm in a way is a little bit inevitable because life is cyclical. We go through, just like the seasons, right? We're coming into summer, and this is when the plants are really bursting with color and all sorts. They're growing at their fastest. And in business, there are times when we're gonna have too much to do, and that's when the overwhelm creeps in, and we go into a different state of being able to handle it or not handle it, and that's when the burnout comes about. So let's bring it alive with an example. What springs to mind as examples of overwhelm? What do you see have you seen in yourself or in customers?
So I feel like when I get overwhelmed, it's when there's a lot of plates spinning. Really, when there's lots of different things happening, and it's when I realize that obviously you've set lots of things in motion, there's lots that we're trying to do, and they start to come together in a moment where you're having to keep track of that purchase, you're having to keep track of that refurb, you're having to also make sure that the team are doing something because you've hired some new people and you're trying to manage them, and suddenly you realize that your headspace is very diffracted. It's very much kind of, oh gosh, but what about that, what about that, what about that? You're not it's almost like we always try to be focused as a business, but it's impossible when you're the business owner to always be focused on the thing you're genius at, because you're going to have these things pulling your attention. And when I feel the overwhelm start to come is when I realize that literally like every 10 minutes, it's like another thing is grabbing my attention. And
Yes.
it's hard to carve out a good hour and
Yeah.
feel good about carving out an hour or two to do a good focused task, because I'm like distracted thinking, oh, but I should check on that. I might as well go to, just check in WhatsApp and make sure the team are doing that thing. And you've got things coming to your mind where it's like, I do, when I'm getting overwhelmed, I start waking up at 4 in the morning. It's just, I think that's a classic. The witching
Yes.
hour, it gets called. 4
Yes.
in the morning, wake up. And my brain, it's partly, I've been thinking about this recently, because I actually, in the last couple of weeks, have been hitting
Yes.
towards work overwhelm.
Right.
And I'm waking up at 4, and I think it's because my brain is doing that thing where it's processing the day's actions, processing all the problems, and by around 4 in the morning, it's like it's done its processing and it wants to give me the answers. It's like, come on, you need to think about this. And I think of things that I could have thought of the day before, but I didn't, because I was worn out at the end of the day and I was like ready to switch off. But at 4 in the morning, my brain's ready for it.
It's
like
hilarious. I was reading a book about Chinese medicine, and actually the reason why people wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning is because that's when apparently the lungs are sort of at their most active, and it's to do with anxiety, worried about the future. So if you find yourself waking up a lot, particularly around 3-4 o'clock in the morning, that's usually there's a worry about the future that is stopping you from staying rested during that time. Anyway, sorry, that's a bit of a side, but I think it's
a brilliant aside though, because actually it's the second time I've heard that in 3 days, and it's the first time I've ever come across it. The first time was because I went to see our wonderful chiropractor, Stacey, who we have this other episode if anyone's interested, who I went to, and with our chiropractor, who is very holistic. She doesn't just do chiropractic. We turn up, and generally we're in good condition. And I so often just say, "Oh, I'm struggling with this thing, any old thing that is a problem in my life." And I turned up on Monday. It'd been a month since the last scene. I said, "Stacey, I'm struggling because I'm waking up at 4 in the morning." and I was like, "Can you help?" And she went, "Yeah, let's have a look at that." And she actually worked on me. She worked on and she said exactly the same thing. She said the body works on the liver between 1 and 3, generally, and it works on the lungs between 3 and 5, and it can be slightly offset, but that's generally the times. And she said the liver, if you're waking up between 1 and 3, or there's problems there, the liver relates to anger. And those types of problems, anger and judgment. And she said the lungs, like you just said, is fears, worries, anxieties, and that's what it's linked to. And then she worked on me, and you won't believe this. I've got this Oura ring that tracks my physical, sleep and everything, heart rate, and I literally, like, there's two things. One is that the last 2 nights is the first time, and I looked back to check this, it's the first time I've had 2 nights in a row without waking up before like 7 in the morning.
Wow.
And especially midweek, like Tuesdays and Wednesdays, that's when I do it. I start to switch off better on a Friday. But I looked back, and for the last several months, it's like if I ever sleep through to like 7, it's because it's one day and a one-off thing, and it's a Friday, and like it's just lucky. It's because I'm switching off for the weekend. But I literally 2 nights in a row. She hit my head with a hammer. She like worked on my muscles a bit. She gave me a little potion, like a little bit of the bark remedy. It was literally witchery and modern witchery, and it worked. Like 2 nights in a row, slept right through, 7-8 hours sleep. Just gone.
We can jump straight into solutions there, but I think it's relevant because this is the thing. We can have a sense of overwhelm because we're stressed and we're anxious about the future, and we've got, as you say, distracted. I think distraction and overwhelm go together. Like two sides of a coin. It's just they're absolutely that are signs that we're overwhelmed. But I think it's relevant to bring up, actually, if you're waking up at night, particularly between 3 and 5, that could also be a sign that you're a bit overwhelmed at the moment as well. So that's another symptom, effectively, of overwhelm. I know a lot of other people get a lot of gut issues. Irritable bowel syndrome, IBS as it's known, is another thing where the body is effectively reacting. So it's really interesting. You can be aware that you're overwhelmed because you feel stressed, but also you might notice it in your body, either waking up or IBS or headaches or potentially tension headaches, maybe migraines and various other things. So overwhelm isn't it's not a good thing, and we've really got to catch it early so that it doesn't lead into, as we mentioned, burnout.
Wait, Tom, before we go any further, I really want to know, you are such a chilled and calm person, right? It's ridiculous. Do you ever get overwhelmed? And if you do, How does it manifest for you?
So in work, the only time I would feel overwhelmed is usually short term. It's just I've got a lot to do within a very short amount of time. Um, that's only the only time I would feel it, and it wouldn't last longer than a day or two,
Okay.
because, and it's deliberate, I've crafted my week to be one where I have time for myself. So I, effectively time block, in a way, me time, as it's known in Sex and the City. I think they coined it me time. So because I've got that time for myself, where I can go for a run, go to the gym, go for a walk. I mean, I try and walk twice a day. That means I can decompress, and that is my, I have to have that. If I don't have that, I know I will get overwhelmed. So because I've crafted it into my working week, and that is, that time off, or that break, that strategic disengagement from work, is as important to me as the actual work. That's why I don't tend to get overwhelmed. I'd say I'd probably get a little bit more overwhelmed with family and relationship situations that I find. Yeah, so that's kind of more of a personal thing. So I think I've, work wise, I've got it sorted. Outside of work wise, maybe less so, but therein also lies, the ups and downs of life. Some people are brilliant, making money and rubbish with relationships. Other people are great with relationships, not very good at making money. There's always a balance somewhere in life. Even billionaires, they make loads of money, but they're not necessarily happy. So everyone has ups and downs. Everyone has good things and bad things. But I would say, work is an area that I seem to be fairly balanced in.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it always comes across, Tom, so well done. So I think what the most important thing that I'm hearing so far is just like being really aware of yourself. And this is actually our standard cycle, right? Awareness is the first part, right? So becoming really aware of yourself to know as soon as you start to have the symptoms of overwhelm, and learn what they are for you.
Yes.
For me, it's waking up in the morning. It could be, bowel problems, or not feeling hungry, or headaches, or whatever it is for you. Become really aware, so that as soon as you have it, you can pinpoint it and say, that's it. I'm entering an overwhelmed moment.
Right.
And we want to keep that as short as possible.
Exactly.
So what's next? Like with our clients, people are saying, I'm starting to get overwhelmed. And we're starting to say, right, let's support you with that. What do we do?
Yes. Well, if you've got the awareness, you spot it early and you can do something about it quickly. A lot of people haven't necessarily got that awareness, and actually the overwhelm is almost their natural state of being, because they maybe have grown up in a chaotic environment, perhaps, or just, gone into work where it's a big corporate and the expectation is that you work, 10, 12 hours a day, and it's on, you're on full time, and you haven't got time for burnout or overwhelm is just the norm, and that's the way you function. That's the way we get the most things done. And that's the thing. The problem is, people think, if I do more, I'll get more done, and therefore it'll somehow go, or it'll somehow get less later on. One of the first principles in Brian Tracy's book Eat That Frog is that there will always be too much to do. And that is quite liberating, to realize that actually doesn't matter how much you get done, there'll always be more. So actually just chill out and go at the pace that works for you, so that you're not stressed, because when you're stressed, actually you're less productive. If in longer term, certainly, because there's good stress and bad stress, but too much chronic bad stress is definitely a bad thing, because it leads to illnesses and all sorts. And your body, will respond with making you ill and various other things if you don't spot that overwhelm and stress on quickly. But digress, and my mind's gone off. I can't even remember the question now, but go on.
What do we do about it? So I caught on to something you said there, which was like, there's always too much to do, right? That's the primary premise, and that's so true. And one of the things I've noticed is that if you just attack that list, you've got too much on the list, so you're just like, I'm gonna get it done, and you attack it. It's so funny, because it's like every action has an opposite and equal reaction in life. And it's the same for your to-do list, because every time you get something ticked off, it's almost like that life is going to send you that straight back, whether it's like an email for you respond to someone's email, they're going to email you back, or you get over that one challenge in the build, and then you're on to the next, and yes, you're going to hit the next challenge, the builder's going to come back with the next problem. Like if you try and tick it all off and just keep going, you will
Actually
just keep
create
building
more.
that to-do list. You will create more.
That's a massive insight, Dave. A lot of people think that if they tick these things off, actually, less will happen. No, you're absolutely right. The opposite is true. If you send an email, you're going to get a whole load of emails back. So actually, we have to deliberately do less in order to have less to do.
Yeah.
It's so, and I really admire Jackie for this. She's brilliant at delegating. When there's an awful lot to do, she's like, no, not doing that, not doing that, not doing that. And she cuts out all the stuff so that she's got that, and she can maintain her energy for the most important stuff during that day. And that is something I admire in her. It's absolutely incredible. And I wish more people were able to do that, because that is, I think, one of the master skills of being able to not
manage
get
everything.
overwhelmed and manage oneself.
She is ruthless with her energy, and it's one of the things that makes her successful, to be able to do so much. And I think that's really important to take away for anyone listening to this. Like, Jackie is the best at this, and it's because she's ruthless, and she looks at a month. She's looking a month or two ahead and saying, I can see if I carry on and do that without making change, I am going to get overwhelmed. She doesn't even wait for the awareness.
Right.
She's looking ahead going, I know from historical experience that if I carry on and my diary looks like this, I know I'm going to get overwhelmed. So I need to make changes now, clean it out a bit. And like a good example is this month, Jackie's doing 10 speeches. She doesn't do 10 speeches any month. Like that's rare. Like she does online talks and maybe one a week or something, but 10 in a month is a lot. So she's already looking at the month going, I know my energy will be depleted. I'm going to have to clear my mornings. I'm going to have to put less client meetings in. I'm going to have to manage my energy because I will get overwhelmed, and it will be unenjoyable, and I will get stressed, and I will probably do a much worse job of the speeches, and I'll basically hate my job. Right. And she doesn't want that.
Yeah.
So she's made all those changes in advance to avoid the overwhelm. Yeah. It's incredible management.
I think there's a quote by Gandhi who's like, when you've got a really busy day, just make sure you meditate for 2 hours. And if it's a really busy day, then meditate for 4 hours. It's one of those ones that if you're going to be doing a whole load, make sure that you've got an equivalent break from that.
Yeah.
High performers, people in the sports industry, they know that if they need to rest as much as they train. And it needs to be balanced, because we are human beings and we need to balance ourselves. And if we're not balanced, then something will happen to cause us to balance. If we don't look after our health when we're young, it will hit us hard later on, and you'll have various issues. So it's so important that we create that awareness, and before the overwhelm hits, like Jackie does, we don't, we see it before it's going to happen. Well, that's the master skill.
Yeah, not many of us will be as good as Jackie at this. I definitely am not. But because she's a perfect planner, she's a genius planner. That's why she's so good at strategy. But you're right. Like, as soon as you notice, can learn to become aware, and maybe you won't be able to plan in advance, but at least as soon as it starts happening, make changes. So that brings me on to my next thought. Right, I see this in myself. I definitely have it when I get into overwhelm. You lose perspective.
Yeah,
and what happens is you see everything as super important. And I have a way of dealing with this. I go to Jackie and I'm like, Jackie, I'm feeling stressed. I've got a bit much on. I don't quite know what to do. And we sit down together, and it takes maybe 20 minutes to just talk through the items. Yes. And she brings the perspective to me that says, look, does that thing, I know you're saying you want to get it done today and tomorrow, but does it really have to happen today or tomorrow? And I'll be there going, I think so. And then I go, actually, she's like, but what would happen if it didn't happen today or tomorrow? And I go, oh, nothing. Should we push that back to next week then? And she goes through in a very lovely way and helps me build that perspective again, where you are able to say, I know I set my expectation that I was going to do this and I was going to achieve that and I was going to manage whatever. Yeah. And I know I want to do all these things, but it's not physically possible. Yes. And I need to look after myself. So therefore, let's just spread it out a bit. Let's push things back. Let's create space. And it's really funny because maybe I'll have, we'll talk about 10 things on my mind. We might only push back 2 of them. We might just create a bit of space to maybe delegate a couple of them, but delegate parts of it, or at least give myself a different opinion on them. I'll do half the workload, just get part of it done now. And suddenly I'm free. Yes. It's like the shackles are off. But before that moment, and I see this in our clients as well, there's this moment where everything is
Yes.
imperative.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
I must do that, and there's no other route. So I guess I okay at doing it for myself. I'm getting better, but I have Jackie. So
Yes.
what would your suggestion be when you're talking to clients, talking to people like me to
I was
help
I was about to
gain
say,
that?
what happens if you haven't got a Jackie in your life? I mean, that's why, I have other coaches and mentors that I work with, because I can't see myself and I can't see the things that are holding me back and could potentially lead to overwhelm in certain areas.
Mm,
So having someone to talk to, whether it's a friend, a coach, a mentor, a mastermind group where you can share it, I think that is one of the greatest things we can do, because, you know, as they say, a problem shared is a problem halved, and just actually being able to speak it through with someone is sometimes enough to get that clarity and get a different perspective on ultimately what is the problem, which is the problem of feeling
yeah,
overwhelmed. So that I would
yeah.
say speak to someone, and ideally have a really good coach and mentor that you can work with on that one is
Yeah.
what I would
I,
say.
I guess I'd add to this. I actually think this is one of the biggest strengths of Jackie and me is
Mm,
that we're both in the business and we're both really helpful for each other.
yes.
However, I do see like people undervalue their partners.
Yeah.
Like your life partner is definitely someone who you trust and respect,
Yeah.
who their opinion should mean something to you, and they should know you very well because you've been with them for a long time.
Yeah.
So I guess I look at that and say that is your perfect person to become a sounding board. They don't need to know your business inside out.
Yes.
They don't. They just need to understand you, and you need to have the respect to listen to them,
Yeah.
and for them to take the time to listen to you. So, like one of the biggest questions Jackie asked, I said it earlier. The biggest question she asked is, "What would happen if you didn't do that today?" Because I think that's
Mm,
the question I don't ask
yes.
myself. I
Yeah.
often say to her, "Oh, ideally, I do want to get that done today," because I've set myself that goal. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I want to get that done today because I want to be
Yes.
that I wanted to
Yes.
get that thing moving. But she's like, but what would happen if you can't ask yourself that, having a partner who can literally look with that bigger
Yeah.
perspective and say, look, what would really happen, and to force yourself to actually answer them with respect rather than just be like, no, no, you don't understand. Because I think that's
Yeah.
what a lot of people do. If their partner's not
Yeah.
in the business, like, no, no, it's my business. You don't understand. You wouldn't
Yeah.
get it. I
Yeah.
do need to do that today, and it's never true.
Mm,
There's very, very few things on the list that have to be done today.
yes.
And you just need to find some way to get that perspective, to have someone you can talk to. And it doesn't have to be someone who knows the business, who you respect, who you can listen to and realize, okay, no, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't have to do it today.
It does need to be someone who has the listening skills of just asking the question and then shutting up. Because a lot of people
Okay.
don't really listen. They are just waiting for you to stop talking so that they can then fill it with what they want to say.
That's true.
And yeah, but you touched on it nicely there. I think there's two questions you can ask yourself. One is, yeah, exactly. What do you need to let go of? What
Mm,
is it you're holding on to you can need to let go of? That's kind of one of the best questions to ask yourself generally in life. And the other one is also, if you were to pinpoint the one thing that makes the biggest difference to how you're feeling right now, what would that one thing be?
mm,
Is it that one particular deal, or is it, raising that particular finance, or was it, and also, is it even in, sorry, these are going on to other questions now, but those are the two big ones I'd say. But the other ones would be like, a lot of people get stressed and overwhelmed when they're trying to control something that's outside of their control, or maybe even outside of
yes.
their influence as well. We have to focus on what we can control and do what we can around what we can influence. But, if it's like a mortgage company, and they haven't come back to you on something, it's like, what can you do? Like, you've given this a great example before, actually, but what can you do about it? Nothing. So just relax. It is what it is, and let go, because
Yeah. Yeah.
otherwise you're just beating yourself up for no reason. So yeah.
I totally agree, and I guess I'd say like I find with those types of situations, I set myself once I can find my perspective right, and I
Mm,
can get out of my letting it go is a matter of for me setting an intention of what I am able to control. So like
yes.
mortgage companies, I'm like okay, my access is my broker.
Yeah.
All I want to do is check in my broker. I don't want to piss him off. I don't want to be like down his neck twice a day. But I do want to be checking in a way that makes me feel like he's on top of it. It makes me
Yeah.
feel like good, and also makes sure that like whatever happens, I'm things are moving like in
Yes.
the background. So I'm like, what does that actually mean for me? Does that mean checking in every single day with him? Or does that mean
Mm,
once every 2 days, or is that once a week? I make my decision. What is the intention to be able to, for me to feel good, I'll check in
Yeah.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes.
And then once I've set that intention, I know all I need to do is a 10-minute call
Yeah.
3 times that week. And that problem is I let go of everything else. I can just let it go. I'm like, that's solved.
Yes.
I mean, it might not be solved. It might be delayed still by the end of the week. But the fact is, I've done the thing that's in my control. I've set a plan for, and I'm doing.
Yeah.
So
That's key. That was going to be my next point is, setting boundaries on your time, setting actions and following through on those. And that's going to lead to some sense of effectively control, which brings us, self-esteem. We've got control over the situation. Therefore, we have certainty, and certainty is something that we want. The reason why people feel overwhelmed is they've got uncertainty. And so we need to balance that certainty with uncertainty and kind of go, okay, well, this bit I can do something about, this bit I can't necessarily do something about because it's outside of my control. The other thing would be that you remembering that things expand to fill the allotted time. So it's Parkinson's law. So just sometimes I find setting myself a deadline to go, okay, I've got loads to do, but I'm going to work until this point. Sometimes I find it quite useful to go, actually, I've got a meeting in half an hour. I'm going to get this, and this done in that time. And that's a great forcing function to actually do as much as I can and possibly just sign it off because 80% is good enough. And then I don't need to worry about it anymore because it's like, okay, it's over now. I've done what I could, and I do this when I'm doing a presentation up in Birmingham. It's like, I haven't quite finished my slides. I'll leave it until I'm on the train. I'll do it then, and then it has to be what it has to be, and then I'm not going to worry about it unduly because it's like nothing's ever going to be perfect, and they don't know any different. So actually, I'm just going to do the best I can in the time that I've given myself and not let it go on and on and on and on, which a lot of people do when it comes to overwhelm. They let things drag and then it all accumulates, and that really doesn't.
Yes. That's brilliant. I'd use that forcing function as well, Dom. Exactly that one. Leave it until push it back until it actually has to be done, and then you've got a forced period of time. Okay, it's due tomorrow, so I have to do it today, and I've by that Thursday it's due on Friday, so therefore I'm allocating an hour and a half to it, and that's all I've got for this thing. And then you literally make it happen in that hour and a half. There's no other option, right? And it forces it solves 2 things. It solves the perfectionism trait that most of us have, because we all want things to be amazing, and we generally, some more than others, won't let it go until it's perfect. And it solves that because you can't do anything else. And you have to then confront that part of yourself that has to let it go, even though it might not be perfect in your mind's eye. And then secondarily, therefore, leads on to saying it ensures the 80-20 principle.
Right.
It means that in that time, you have done the 20% that really needed doing to get you the 80% of the results that will make it good enough, right? Because you've forced it to be that less time. And it really works. I get ridiculous how much of our everything we do is a waste of time, and that we're just doing it for ego because we're like, I want that to look really good. I want it to come across really well. I want to blah blah blah. Like, it's ego. It's because you want other people to look at you and see something that they respect, see something that looks really professional. You want the world to view you in a certain way, and you're fearful that if you don't make it perfect, other people will judge it or judge you or judge what you've done. And the truth is, people just don't care that much. It's like good 20% done is really gets the job done, and it's not affecting your business or your life to not get it perfect. And that's one of the big things we all have to overcome. So the forcing function forces you to overcome that.
One.
And along the same lines, Jackie uses the Pomodoro technique for this. She's like, I haven't got much time, so that's it. 25-minute timer. That's all I've got. 25 minutes.
There we
go.
And
then I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. And if we were to bring this alive again with a case study, for example, buying a property, it's hard to get started. It's messy in the middle with the refurb and the financing and everything else, but it's glorious at the end. It's tenanted and you've got the money coming in. So just remembering that pretty much everything new that you start, particularly in business, is hard to start. It's messy in the middle and it's glorious at the end. It's my favorite saying at the moment with a chap called Robin Sharma, but it's so true. It really gives you perspective on things. That you might be overwhelmed at the moment, but it's because it's probably the messy middle of where you're at with your particular project that you're working on. And actually, that's kind of normal, but above all, just be aware of how you're reacting and what you're allowing into your life too. There's something I love called the totalitarian principle, and basically it says that if there is something in your life, then it is compulsory. So, quick example, on your mobile phone, if you've got notifications, at some point that will take up your time and your attention. So take off notifications. Facebook, if it's there, even without notifications, at some point you will look at it. So delete and remove things in your life that are going to take up your time and energy so that you can focus on the most important things and focus your energy on the bits that really make the biggest difference. I've given the example before, but Steve Jobs wore polo neck every day because he didn't have to think about what to wear, so he was saving his energy around what he was wearing each day, and just had the same same polo neck. I know Simon Cowell these days always has a black t-shirt. It's the same principle. Just simplify your life. That is a key thing, is simplify your life. Take away all the distractions that are sapping your energy, and that is going to give you a whole load of energy back, which means that you're not going to get so overwhelmed. So simplifying your life is absolutely key. That would be another takeaway, I think.
That's true. And that side of things, like it's you've talked about energy a lot there, and I think of it, a lot of the things you've said there is within the concept of headspace as well. Like it's your energy, but also just things, the distraction, go back to where we started, the headspace distraction. You want to remove things from your headspace, and decision making is a drain. So those, just what you said with Steve Jobs and the clothes and things like that, every decision you can remove gives you more resilience and more strength to make other decisions. So the more decisions we make, the more willpower is drained. So as soon as you become aware you're heading towards overwhelm, it's time to take action. It's time to work on what you can control. It's time to start time blocking time for you, get some space, get that me time. It's time to start looking at your 80-20 and really using forcing functions to mean you're using less time on jobs. You're actually only doing what needs to be done. It's time to rearrange your to-do list and start being ruthless and pushing back. There's so much you can do, and it's time to start saying, what decisions do I not need to make now? What can I procrastinate on, or what can I just remove as a decision altogether? And you're right, Dom, it's time to start looking at even the basic things of your phone and saying, okay, look, I'm getting these notifications on WhatsApp. They're distracting me and they're adding to that headspace madness. It's time to turn off my notifications. It's time to take positive actions that will reduce anything bit by bit that is adding towards the overwhelm, so that the things you are doing are the most important things, the true priorities that need to get done at that point in time.
Amazing. Such deep stuff from so many different perspectives. Thank you so much to Dom and to Dave. Now, obviously, you can talk about all the principles at play here when it comes to prioritization, but it's interesting that it's so hard to put some of them into practice in real life. And that's what our property business breakthrough retreat is about. Those things that you want to do, that you want to do differently, but you're struggling to make it happen. And therefore, as a result, you are struggling to secure the finance and do the deals that you want to do to hit your goals. So if you want some support to spend a few days overcoming all of that, check out our property business breakthrough retreat, which we're running 19th to the 23rd of September in Italy, where we're just going to work together solidly to overcome those barriers in the way of being able to master yourself and move your business forwards. You can check out all the details at property-strategy.com/PBB for property business breakthrough. And next week, we are talking about how to change your environment in order to change your life, and getting out of your own way to be able to transform and get bigger results. Myself and Dom will be joining you this time next week. So until then, have a great week.